What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. ADP risers and fallers mid-August update. It's been about a month since we've last done this video, so I wanted to take a look at the wide receiver positions to see, hey, who has changed the most in drafts and how does that affect our opinions on players? Because remember, we like or don't like players solely in the context of their ADP. I loved Tevin Coleman this season, but if he was going in the top 7 overall, you better believe I wouldn't love him anymore. Because of that, it's extremely important for us to make these update videos and talk about the players moving the most in drafts. As always, if you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like on the video. It shows us that you approve of the videos we're coming up with. So, let's start things off with the stat of the day. Today's stat. Last season, there were 4 wide receivers with at least 200 slot snaps, but 0 drops. Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, Doug Baldwin, and who was the 4th? All right, let's start this breakdown off with Antonio Brown. Gotta start with AB, right? Well, he's fallen from the 2.08 to the 2.12. And I want to do a quick note. That's how I'm talking about ADPs for this video. 2.08 means that he's the 8th pick in the second round. 2.12 means the 12th pick in the second round. Just want to make sure everyone's clear on that. There are 2 reasons for this drop. Both of them are just absolutely ridiculous. He suffered the foot injury during his cryotherapy session, and now he won't play unless the league allows him to use his band helmet. Well, here's the thing. The league is not going to let him use his band helmet. They're just not going to. Okay, so that's not going to happen. He's also not allowed to practice without it on. And he won't be paid while he refuses to play. The league will not be changing their stance on this, so it's up to Antonio Brown if he's just bluffing and he wants to be like, whatever, I'll play with it. He's also said he'll sue the league if he suffers a head injury. So while it's awesome entertainment, and I can't wait for this stuff to come out on Hard Knocks, it's concerning as a fantasy owner, and I agree, you gotta drop him a few spots. It's only 4 spots he went back. He probably went behind like 2 wide receivers and 2 running backs. But at the end of the day, if you just want to avoid all risk and not draft Antonio Brown, go for it. I mean, we weren't targeting him anyways. This ADP makes it nicer. I mean, if he plays a full 16 weeks, then he's probably going to return this value. But with all the other concerns over him changing teams, going to Carr, less volume in the offense, less total touchdowns, now you add all this stuff in, whatever. You just don't have to draft him. So if you don't want to draft him, don't draft him. T.Y. Hilton is next, and he's fallen from the 211 to the 303. And the only thing I can think of as to why this has happened is Andrew Luck's calf injury. There's concern, I guess, among some of the community that maybe he's not 100% to start the season, although it definitely looks like he's going to play. So it seems like right now, worst case scenario is that Andrew Luck's a little gimpy to start the season and maybe he's not 100%, but it for sure looks like he's going to play. So I don't think that this is warranted. T.Y. Hilton's apparently been crushing camp and doing amazing, and honestly, he was incredible from week, 10 on last season. So any sort of discount you can get on T.Y. Hilton is great. And look at the 303. I mean, at the 303 spot, you can take a top 5 running back, your choice of an elite wide receiver or the end of the elite running backs at the end of the second round, and then you get to start off the third round with T.Y. Hilton. I mean, that's a really nice start to your draft. So I am definitely all for this drop because it shouldn't have happened, and we're just getting a discount. Chris Godwin is next, and he's risen from the 5.02 to the 4.09. And unfortunately, the public is starting to realize how much Godwin is going to dominate this season. I do still like him in that 4th round range because the difference between the end of the 4th and the early 5th is just what position you had. Like, where were you in the 1st round? It's not that much different. So the rise isn't anything, crazy. But I do want to say there's really not that much room for him to get any further up. Like, he could move maybe into the mid 4th round, but it's not like there's that much room unless there's injuries for him to move into, say, the late 3rd or like the early 4th. So I do think he's going to kind of hold where he is right now, and I do still think he is a buy at this ADP. AJ Green's next, and he's fallen from the 3.05 to the 5.01, which is, of course, a reaction to his injury. We know at this point that he's going to miss regular season games. We do not know how many. He's recovering from that ankle surgery. We're expecting, based on what they said after the surgery, 3 to 4 weeks. That's like kind of what it's going to be, and I'm talking like week 3 or week 4 return, not from now. So could he return in week 3 and then not get hurt for the rest of the year and crush his ADP? Yeah, he could. But he could also return in week 5 or week 6 and be a little gimpy and then suffer a setback. So there's a large range of outcomes for AJ Green. I said in past videos before we knew this extended time frame that the 5th round was where I would start targeting him again. But given that he's going to return a little bit later, I probably wouldn't take him in the 5th. I know that starting the 5th round, that's when we say go for all your upside, take on all your risk, because in the first 4 rounds, we're definitely not. But it's a wee bit too risky drafting a player who's already coming off of 2 surgeries now this offseason in the 5th round. So I would wait a little bit longer. And to be completely honest, if you're drafting where we have him ranked, you're not going to get him. Tyler Boyd, of course, has to be next, and he's risen from the 6.05 to the 5.06. And a lot's been made of his splits without Green, right? Because he's going to open the season without AJ Green. But some of those splits include games without Andy Dalton, and they were already a super small sample size anyways. So whenever someone shows you those splits, like, it's always nice to have the information. You know, we'd always prefer more information. We can get it. It's just your job to figure out which actually matters, and those splits don't really matter all that much. Tyler Boyd's a better pick with the AJ Green injury. That's not something anyone should hear otherwise. Because of that, his ADP change is warranted. However, it's all the value's been sucked out. Like, if you were taking him exactly where he was going, well, yeah, you're getting a value because he's a little bit of a better fantasy option. But now in the mid-5th, all that value is taken away, and you honestly just run the risk that AJ Green comes back in week 3 and does really well. So I'm not really targeting Tyler Boyd. I think he's ranked fair. I'll leave it at that. I think his ADP is fair. DJ Moore is next, and he's risen from the 6.06 spot to the 5.10, and I still like his ADP. I still have him ranked well above ECR, well above that average ADP, although I do still like Curtis Samuel more. And since I typically don't target both players, I will, as of right now, still be targeting Curtis Samuel, even at his risen ADP, and we'll get to him, over DJ Moore because of how I believe the split is going to be between those 2 players. Again, that doesn't mean you can't target DJ Moore. If you just want one of them and you don't want to run the risk that Curtis Samuel also gets taken, well, then take DJ Moore at his 5.10 because that's still a good ADP, and I have him ranked ahead of that. Mike Williams is next, and he's dropped from the 5.08 to the 5.12. And this has more to do, I think at least, with other people rising than him being a worse pick. If anything, the Melvin Gordon holdout could last into the season, and really, doesn't that just help him? I know they potentially might score less touchdowns, but a higher percent of them are going to come through the air, and since he's one of the premier receiving options in the red zone, you'd think that his touchdown ceiling will now be raised. I know I've talked a lot about the impending touchdown regression that's going to happen with him, but also I need to make it a point that he's going to see more overall targets. So yeah, his touchdown rate will go down by a lot, but he's going to see more targets overall. And if Melvin Gordon holds out, again, some of those targets are going to go through the air now that we're going through the ground. I'm still not, going out of my way to get him. I have him ranked exactly where he is in ECR and just 2 spots back from his ADP. I don't think he's a bad pick, but I also don't think he's someone that you should be targeting in your drafts. Alshon Jeffery, he's risen from the 6.11 to the 6.05, and I think people are starting to realize that somehow you're able to get this offense at a discount. Other than Zach Ertz and Jordan Howard, this entire offense is a buy. Alshon, Jackson, Sanders, Wentz, if you like taking quarterbacks a little bit earlier, this offense is elite, and those guys are all pretty cheap. I have Alshon as my wide receiver 20, 3 spots above ECR, and 9 spots above his current ADP. And remember, if you want to see my full rankings along with my projections and player notes, then you can check them out at my website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Dante Pettis is next, and he's risen from the 7.05 to the 6.08, and I have loved his ADP all summer, and I do still have him ranked a little bit ahead of his new ADP. But I don't envision my ranking on him rising any further, really no matter what news comes out. So you're going to want to watch his ADP. If it gets a little bit higher into that mid-6th and then the early 6th round, that's when I'm going to stop calling him a target. So if he gets into the early 6th round in your drafts, I will stop calling him a target at that point and just call him someone that, yeah, you can draft if you like him and if you don't have to reach, if that's like where you want to take him, you don't like any of the other wide receivers, you don't want to go with the running back right here, you can take Dante Pettis. So right now he's a target, but if he rises any further, I'm going to take that ranking off. Christian Kirk, the other wide receiver we love, risen from the 7.07 to the 7.01, and that is still not even close to high enough. His ceiling is massive this season, and he's being drafted at his floor. He remains one of the best mid-round wide receiver picks you can possibly make, since the public doesn't realize how fantasy-friendly this offense is going to be. So I'm still absolutely targeting him in 100% of my drafts at the 701. Sammy Watkins ADP, that's tanked a little bit, going from the 6.02 to the 8.05, and that's obviously because Tyreek Hill, we thought about a month ago, he was potentially going to be suspended for a large period of time. And since now that's not going to be the case unless there's further evidence, you can't draft Sammy Watkins in the middle rounds anymore. I do think this drop is a little bit too far. I mean, he's dropped about a round and a half. Like, soon I bet you it's going to drop into more like the late 8th round. And sure, he's not the number one anymore. I mean, he never was going to be. It was going to be Travis Kelce, but he's not the number one wide receiver. But this is still an incredible offense, and there is still a chance that something happens to Tyreek Hill. And if that's the case, getting him in the middle of the 8th round is fair. I mean, he's an extremely talented wide receiver, and he was really good last season when he was healthy. So if you think he's going to be healthy this season, I mean, you can definitely take him at his current ADP. He's not a target for me, but he's someone to definitely keep an eye on. Someone who is a target, though, is our beloved Curtis Samuel, risen from the 10.11 to the 8.07. So his ADP, his rise is unfortunate, obviously. We're getting much less of a discount than we've been getting the entire summer, but he's still awesome because he genuinely could be this team's number one wide receiver with how much of a step he has taken forward and how much of a step forward he already took late last season. He's going to be incredible this season. He's being drafted at his floor just like Christian Kirk is. So definitely still target Curtis Samuel even at this elevated ADP. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he's next, and he's risen from the 10.07 to the 8.12. And I was hoping that his ADP wasn't going to get this high, but people have caught on. I mean, he was great last year, and it's very clear that the top three in this offense is Adam, MVS, and Allison. We're still not sure exactly what the split's going to be, but I would honestly try and get one of them. Like right now, MVS is going about a half a round later than Allison is, and it's always nicer to get the cheaper guy if, you don't know which one. But I would try and get one of them, because if it's clear that they're all going to be on the field on pretty much every play, like Aaron Rodgers is a pretty darn good quarterback, so I want the wide receivers on his offense. Dede Westbrook is next. He's risen from the 10.06 to the 9.02. People are starting to finally realize that he's being severely undervalued. The 9.02 is still not high enough. The one thing that we need to pay attention to is the groin injury. He said that it's just a little bit of tightness, and if that's the case, like, who cares? He'll be fine. They're going to hold him out of preseason because they just don't need to do anything with him in preseason. But if he's good to go to start the season, his ADP is still a joke, so you need to be targeting him in all drafts. And remember, I did talk about him in Sunday's video, so if you want a more in-depth breakdown of him, check that one out. Sterling Shepard, he's fallen from the 8.04 to the 9.03, probably because of the broken thumb. I'm really not sure, though, like why people think that's such a bad thing. I mean, yeah, obviously, you don't want your wide receiver breaking their thumb. Yeah, that's obvious. But he's probably going to be back by week 1. I really don't think he's going to miss any time. And he's the only wide receiver they have with the first month of the season, because Golden Tate's going to be suspended for the first 4 games. Who else do they have? Try and name their next best receiver and tell me if you're scared of them as a defensive coordinator. So Sterling Shepard's going to get the football. They have no one to throw to. It's him, it's Ingram, and it's Barkley, and that's it. So when Golden Tate comes back, yeah, they'll add another pass catcher, but they're going to lose so many games that they're going to need to give him the rock a lot. Another player to target, DeSean Jackson. He has risen from the 11.05 to the 9.11. But that's just people reacting to, oh, wow, I don't know why the number 2 wide receiver on the Eagles was going in the middle of the 11th round. There's apparently been a great connection between him and Carson Wentz in camp, and he is locked into that every down outside wide receiver role in the offense. Last year, he didn't have a good year. He had a down year, but the thing is, he was one of the best deep threats in the league, and he gets a huge upgrade at quarterback, and he joins an offense that's gonna score a ton more points. So definitely still target DeSean Jackson, even in the late 9th round. He's going to pay off that ADP. DK Metcalf has fallen from the 9.03 to the 10.04, probably due to that minor oblique injury, but I don't fully know why. I mean, this is an extremely minor injury, and he was just able to play in that first preseason game. So I don't understand the drop in ADP. I thought he was a solid value in the 9th round, so obviously I like him in the 10th round as well. This is a very low volume passing attack, but who are they throwing to? I know they're going to throw the running back some, but they don't have any tight ends they're really going to throw to. It's just Lockett and Metcalf. So we know where the target's going to go. So even though there's not many of them, he's going to have an elevated target share. That makes him valuable in the 10th round. Another guy going right next to him that I still like is Donte Moncrief. And he's risen from the late 11th round into the 10.04. And as we predicted, it looks like he's going to be the starting outside wide receiver for the Steelers. Washington did come down with some nice receptions during preseason, but it's preseason, and every report from camp says that Moncrief is the team's number 2, which means he's someone you should target in the middle of the 10th round. I do not care who this person is. If you know who the number 2 is on the Steelers now, you should be targeting them in the middle of the 10th round. Keke Coutee's next, and he's fallen from the 9.10 to the 10.10, and we know right now that he suffered a, quote, not major ankle injury. That doesn't tell us a whole lot, but I guess it would indicate that it's not a high ankle sprain. That's the one thing you'd be concerned about. Also, when he fell, I mean, you looked like it could have been a knee, so it's great that it's an ankle, and it's great that they've said it's not major. He's not expected to miss regular season games at this point, but he's going to miss some of this preseason. That's just not good. I still think he's a buy at the 10-10, especially, if he slips into the 11th round because of what he can produce when he's healthy. But if you look at his massive injury history and you're like, no, I would rather target someone who's not hurt every single game, I get it. So you don't need to target him because there are other options in this range. And one of them is Anthony Miller. He's risen from the 12.01 to the 11.01. And this is probably just an adjustment from people realizing how ridiculous his ADP was. One thing you need to monitor with him is, he also has a minor ankle injury. So basically, with Coutee and Anthony Miller, watch the injuries. Just look at how they're progressing, see if they're coming back into training camp, see if they go out there in preseason games. If they're good to go, they're buys at their ADP. John Brown, he's next. He's risen from the 14.06 to the 12.03. And this is probably because the report came out that Robert Foster was on the roster bubble, indicating that John Brown is clearly ahead of him on the depth chart. There are also reports that Brown has been clearly the best wide receiver in camp, and they've been using him all over the field, especially in the red zone. I would like to see how they use him in the next 2 preseason games, but he's definitely someone worth taking the risk on late in drafts because he's still one of the best deep threats in the game, and we all know that Josh Allen isn't exactly scared to chuck the ball deep. He's also a pretty sneaky stack in week 1 because I'm sure it'll come with almost no ownership, and it's a direct pivot from the Kyler Murray, Christian Kirk chalk. Last wide receiver we're going to talk about is Josh Gordon, and he's risen from the 14.04 to the 12.08. And it would not be a true FFA video if we didn't mention Flash, right? I mean, you just got to talk about him. We know that Gordon was great in his time with the Patriots last season, and there's an opportunity available at that outside wide receiver spot. I know that Jacoby Myers has been pretty good this preseason. He's been really good in camp. But listen, he is someone that you could stash in Dynasty, but he's not someone that's going to contribute that much this season. It's going to be N'Keal Harry, Julian Edelman, and if Josh Gordon can get back onto the field, Josh Gordon. It is up to Goodell when that happens. He has sole discretion on how long he's suspended and when he decides that. So if Goodell is just like, hey, in week 4, I'm going to decide that he's suspended for 6 games, well, then we're not going to see Josh Gordon until week 11. But there's also a chance that in the 4th week of the preseason, he decides it's a 2-game suspension, and now you're getting a starting wide receiver on the Patriots in the 12th round. And if you look at how good he was last season when he was on the field, that is a value. So those are the wide receivers whose ADPs have changed the most over the last month. A lot is still going to change during the next few weeks, so make sure you stay up to date on my latest rankings and projections at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting the like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.